All right, I pressed record. So beginning with, all right. So like I said, it's a set of 43 questions. Now there are certain questions which are just questions, and then there are questions that are have some self-disclosure. So I will tell you a little bit about myself, and then
Mhm.
expect you to relate an experience similar to that.
Mhm.
Uh, if you have experienced something similar, if not, then you can skip the question. Actually, please
Okay.
don't skip any questions. Okay,
I
that's
won't
not
skip
an option.
anything, I
Yeah. Okay.
promise.
Uh, right. I'll just do a search instead. All right. Can you hear me, Hayden?
Yep.
Okay. So the first question I have for you is, oh, wait, did I lose it? I I lost it. Just give me a second. Okay, found it. The first question is, and this is based off the video that I saw. Why do you think psychotic individuals express themselves using language that has a lot of symbolic meaning and metaphors? And can you give us an example? How can we, and this is for these metaphors. And I just want to give you an example before you start. Can you hear?
You kind of broke like the past like 10 seconds you've been breaking up a little bit.
Uh, is it fine now? Is there a lag?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I think it was lag. I don't think it was your microphone.
But now there's no lag, right?
There's no lag right now. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So I was reading this like journalistic article where there was this psychotic patient who's a girl, and uh, so there was a juxtaposition of her sort of writings and the writings of her psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist has made like one line notes and two line notes that the patient was not compliant today and had to send her to the room, whereas she is saying, I felt the agony and pain of 1,000 burning suns. And that is the sort of language that she has used, and she's written paragraphs, whereas the psychiatrist has written only two lines. So that, I mean, that sort of shows us that the kind of metaphorical language that a lot of psychotic individuals use. So again, the question remains the same. I'll just repeat it. So why do you think you know psychotic individuals express themselves using language that has a lot of symbolic meaning and metaphors? Can you give us an example, and how can somebody who's not psychotic try and understand these metaphors better?
Mm-hmm. Um, so I'll start with the last part of that question, which is how do people understand them better? I think it's really hard to understand them coming from a non-psychotic place. Like it's pretty difficult. I think the best thing you can really do is like active listening. So active meaning like you're listening not just with your ears, you're listening with your eyes, with your body, with your sensations to really sense where that person is. Because I feel like it's in some ways it's not so much what they're thinking about, it's more like where are they? Like what kind of state are they in essentially? Because um I think it's kind of like when a shaman is guiding someone who's going through an altered state, they're not so much worried about like what is happening like physically to their body. They might be like doing flailing motions or they might be like screaming or something. They're more worried about like where is that person and are they going to be okay essentially. So I think it's kind of a similar approach when you're dealing with people in altered states. It's like where are they, am I safe, are they safe, and like what can I do right now to like help them, or what can I do right now to be of assistance in some way. um, it's kind of it's a difficult territory. I've been wrestling with that question of like how to understand people in psychosis because um, it's impossible to follow like what's going on in someone who's psychotic mind. Like even for myself, it was hard to follow within my own self. So like to expect someone else to follow that would be very difficult. But the best thing they can do is just be empathetic and active listening. You know, is the best thing you can do, and just make sure that you're safe and the other person's safe. As far as speaking in metaphors, I think that's probably happening because we're kind of in a different state of consciousness where we're feeling a lot. We're in a sense kind of dreaming in some ways. And so if you're in a dream, if you look at your dreams, it's a lot of like symbolism and metaphors and sort of these big events, or just like everything has sort of a purpose and a meaning, and it doesn't really make sense when you're in the dream. Just like in psychosis, like when you're in the dream it makes sense, but when you come out it's like, why was I like riding a shopping cart down like a mountain? That doesn't make sense, you know. But like in the dream it made total sense, and it's the same with psychosis. Like while you're in it, it makes sense and everything has meaning, but when you come out of it you're like, what the heck, like, you know. Well, I think all of the delusions to some degree have some root in reality. They come from somewhere, they're not just random, you know.
Right.
Like some people will say, I don't like it when people say like it's all delusion, it's all hallucination. It's like, no, these experiences are real to these people. They're having these experiences. To say that they're not real is to discredit that human having that experience,
Right.
because that's what people going through psychosis are. They're humans having an experience.
Right.
um and if I'm sure if somebody's saying that experience it themselves, they would be like, oh, this is real for me, you know. So I guess the metaphors and stuff like that comes from being in a state where that is the dialect, or that is the language of that state, is metaphors. It is connecting different pieces. It is understanding things from a very sort of um, kind of dreamy or interconnected way. Like everything has a connection, everything has a purpose. We're actively seeking connection and purpose. We're kind of like um, in the water. Like if the water was like the stream of like life, of consciousness and stuff like that, I think we're just thrown right into it, and we have no differentiation, no like rational mind to be able to be like, all right, this stuff is just dream stuff and this stuff is reality. There's not a separation. We're completely in the dream stuff and we're lost. So that's
Right.
why there's all the metaphors.
Right. But
That's
again,
my opinion, you know.
yeah, it's see. I mean, your my takeaway from your point is, I mean, and all of it is a takeaway. But you saying that uh, us discrediting that, this is real and this is not real, for the person, for his existential truth, that thing is real. Like for me, if somebody's sitting on my bed and I am acting according to that belief, for me it is as real as somebody actually sitting on the bed. So if you're worried about me and my condition, then you got to take that belief in and sort of try and find mitigative measures taking in that belief, because I am believing in it completely. And if you ask me to ignore it, then you can't get to me. So I
Mhm.
completely get you that point. But uh, what I wanted to ask you was, there are times when you're trying to in your psychotic state, trying to explain to somebody what you're going through, or something else, and then you use metaphorical language. That is completely understandable, because there is no better way to explain, or there are no other tools that are there which will better
Right.
explain what you're trying to say. I completely get that.
Right.
But there are times when
Right.
uh, you are interact, and I'll give you my example because I'll just talk for myself. uh, I am talking to somebody uh, based on an assumption. Okay, so if I'm telling, I'll take one of my participants' answer, and what he was doing was he was giving his he was asking everybody in his college to light diyas. Diyas are basically mud. Uh, they're like mud cups which you light in a festival we have here. Okay, it's called Diwali, and it's a festival of
Mhm.
lights, and we use that. So he was asking everybody to light diyas in the college, and he was like, "This is very important to me, and you got to do this." And in his psychotic state, and everybody sort of agreed and did that. And for him, he said that some mystical figure is going to come to college and bless us, and for that I'm asking you to do this. And my counter question to him was, you this is not a very complex idea. You can actually tell somebody, I feel there is a mystical figure going to come, and for that reason I want everybody, all of you, to light diyas, right? So there is this sense of, I don't know if it's mistrust, if it's paranoia, where you can actually literally tell somebody what is going on in your head, and you wouldn't have to talk in metaphors in some cases. It's not a very complex thought to, that they won't understand. No, there are certain instances where we still use metaphorical language, and like, why do you think that is? I mean, if you don't have an answer, like, of course I don't have an answer for it, that's what I'm asking. But why do you think that is?
So the question is like why sometimes we can speak rationally, like that it's just straightforward, and then other times it's like sort of metaphors. Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, there are times when you can literally tell the person what it is, and you still choose to use metaphors. Why do we make that decision? I mean,
Well, if we can, if we're in control and we're not like stuck in like a sort of a deep psychotic state where everything is a metaphor, then we use metaphors because it's easier to explain. Like humans can relate to stories. They don't relate to words on their own. Like words are designed to tell stories. So if you don't have plus analogies and metaphors are the best way to explain to somebody what something is without having them had experienced it before. So like if someone tries to explain what psychosis is like or explain what a psychedelic is like, which is like completely different experience from what like normal reality is, you're going to use metaphors pretty much most of the time because that's the only way to help people understand what that may be like, you know.
yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. Uh,
Does that answer the question?
yes, there's Hayden. There's no right or wrong, and there's no satisfactory and unsatisfactory. I mean, I'm not going to give you any indication. I mean, I'm satisfied. I mean, I
Okay.
will tell you, but I will not tell you further. Like, all, it's very subjective. It's whatever you have to say. It's your life that I'm
Okay.
documenting in a way. So
I just want to make sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm answering the. It's not right or wrong. I just want to make sure that the
yeah, yeah,
question is
yeah.
answered.
I can relate to it. Yeah, I mean, apart from the role of the researcher that I have, I can relate to you completely.
Okay. Okay.
Another interesting question that I'm going to pick from this and not go by the order. All right, now this one. I think it was 23rd. Okay, 23rd. Right, this is an interesting question which I haven't been able, after reading all the literature, I haven't been able to wrap my head around it. So
Okay.
I'm hoping you would. And because both of us have not had just one psychotic experience, you've had two, or you've had multiple, right?
All right.
So after debunking all your delusions, once you're out of your psychotic state, do you think of them as silly, or do you still believe in them?
So it's not like a black or white. It's like with most things with life, it's a gray area. So there's some things that in my experience, the delusions were just delusions. Like um, there were certain aspects of the experience sort of like dreams, I'm going to use a metaphor, ironically. Um, it's sort of like dreams, like there's some dreams you have that are just kind of, you're at work, you climb up a ladder, you pull something down, and that's your dream. It's just like a regular dream. And then there's dreams that are like, wow, that like really means something that has significance in my life. Like that like was a big dream. Um, it's similar in psychosis, where it's just like there's just like random shit going on in your psychosis that like really doesn't have that much meaning. And then there's like a few key moments or a few key core ideas or core takeaways from the experience that actually have some validity and have some value that I sort of hold on to now, but my approach to them is different. So like it's kind of like I found these nuggets and I'm able to tap into them. But the way I was doing it before was like not not a functional or a helpful way to relate to it. But I had to swim out into that water to find that little island or that understanding of where that was. And now, like coming back from those delusions and sort of those those thoughts and feelings and stuff like that, I'm able to be grounded but still connect to that place because I kind of know where it is. I've been there before. And so to give some examples, some of those ideas would be, um I guess, like a sense of like connectedness to like the whole universe. Like we're not just like just an understanding that like I am not separate from the universe. Like when I die, I'm just going to return back to the universe, like where I was before I died. It's like not a huge revelation. Well, it is, but like I think intuitively, like most people probably know that already, but like
Yeah.
maybe on a subconscious level, they might know that. I mean, a lot
It,
of like hardcore spiritual traditions have discussed that, including Hinduism.
yeah. It's
So
very it's I mean I'm also like I read about philosophy a little bit, and it's the Schopenhauer. I don't know how you pronounce that name, but there's a philosopher called Schopenhauer, and it was
yeah.
his, you're sort of echoing his idea where he was saying there's this thing called the will. Okay, and because at that time when he was writing, will did not have the same connotations it has right now, like I am a
Mhm,
will person so I can do this, not like that. His idea
mhm,
was, you can call it a collective soul that's
mhm.
equivalent to will in his time. And
Right,
what he would say was, we are all parts of a single will,
right,
and so parts of it get self-actualized. Okay,
right.
parts of the will get self-actualized, and they can then spread that uh, what do you call it, enlightenment, and around to the other parts that are not self-actualized, and then they uh, it's sort of like you light up and then you go to other souls and they light up, and it's kind of like a that kind of an
Flower,
effect.
like a field of flowers.
Yeah, and so again, because you mentioned flowers, he says that there is this aesthetic beauty, all right, and that the will recognizes uh, beauty in all, like if it's nature, or a creation, your own creation, if there's some sense of this thing is aesthetically pleasing and beautiful and this is not, and that helps you in recognizing all of that, does help you uh, get the will sort of get self-actualized in that sense. So
Mhm,
the idea that you are uh, sort of talking about is very similar to the Schopenhauerian idea.
mhm.
I literally butchered his name, but yeah, that's
No, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm pretty sure I've heard it before.
uh, also,
Schopenhauer,
yeah.
Schopenhauer. Okay.
And so my other question, which is an even more like a spin on the previous one, is, okay, I'll tell you about myself. Okay, there's a little bit of self disclosure I'll give you. So my delusion was, I was doing an engineering in civil. I was doing civil engineering. I didn't like my subjects, and I was simultaneously in a band, a guitar player, and a lyricist. And I was playing shows in cafes and earning a little bit on the side, and using all of that to do drugs. So my delusion was that uh, I've been chosen. I'm the chosen one, and I will. I'm privy to certain information people don't know. Like everything, like you said, it's a revelation almost, but it's not really.
Yeah.
In that state, it's a huge revelation. But later on, yeah, everybody is everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So I thought that I had it was raining because I had played a chord really well, and
Right.
people were following me because I was divine, and they would sort of, I'd buy a cigarette, for example, and they'd spare the change because are you going to take the exact amount from the divine guy? Something like
Okay.
that. So
Yeah.
so so that was, it was not a very elaborate delusion. The delusion was, I have been an atheist all my life, and a religious atheist, to sort of use that ironic term. I'm
Mhm,
religiously atheistic. And
mhm,
up until that point, I have had no spiritual ideas that I believe in. But
mhm,
now, the way so there is, I'm having unusual experiences, let's say that. And there has been a change in my surroundings. And in order to explain that, I'm making an effort. And the effort that I'm trying to make is in the sense the delusion.
Mm.
The theory that I've made in order to make sense of my unusual experiences is the delusion. And my particular delusion was, you have been an atheist all your life. You have not wasted time in praying and asking for things from God. So you've been rewarded because you were the real true believer, and you like, I'm an atheist, I'm gonna do hard work, and I'm not gonna waste my time. So I've been
Right.
rewarded. Hey, listen, dude, you will be rewarded for the faith and not people who've been praying. Okay, so that
Right.
was the idea, but it's not an elaborate idea. I take antipsychotic medication, I get rid of my delusions, I come back, and I'm like, that was crazy, bro. I mean, that's not real. Okay.
Mm.
But the next time that I go into psychosis, I start believing in the same delusion again. It's
Right.
not a different delusion. It's not, okay, let's do something else. No, it's the same thing. I'm saying, without increasing, changing anything, and it not being a very elaborate idea, why do we keep on believing in the same delusion again and again, even after recovering and sort of debunking it once you've come out?
Mm.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it has less to do with belief and like your thoughts than it does the state that you're in. So like, um, if you're drunk, you're gonna have slurred speech. You're gonna have sort of, you're gonna stumble around. Like you're gonna be less anxious. Those are just like symptoms of like being drunk. Going into psychosis, it's kind of similar where you're going into a state of consciousness. And some of the symptoms of going into that state are feeling like you are, um, you know, you are privy to information, you're like a divine being and stuff like that. And so, as much as you may know or understand rationally what that is, like there's literally chemicals in your brain that are making you feel and think differently than you would if you were not you're basically under the influence of substances. So like, you can't take a bunch of mushrooms and then like not trip because you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like meditate through it. It's like the mushrooms will kick your ass. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar where like if you have some understanding of the state, like someone who's done mushrooms a lot will have a better, not always, but like will have a better understanding of the space and like the area and how to sort of face issues that come up.
A
Sort of
familiarity.
yeah, exactly. So um somebody who's done psychosis before, it's the same thing. They might have an ability to face it a little bit easier. Like my second psychosis was much more mild than my first one. I was able to recover much quicker because I was able to like I went kind of I kind of see it as a threshold. So like you go like past the threshold and then you're like sort of half in, half out. And then at some point you go all the way through the threshold and you're like you're gone. Like you're totally psychotic. And then you start to like come back down. You're a little bit both, and then like it comes down, and then eventually you're down here, and then eventually, once you recover, then you're able to like kind of do this and be more balanced where you can tap into that space at the same time. Um, so I forget what the question was.
Uh, yeah. Why do we start? But again, you've answered it like in your own way. Why do we start believing in the same delusion again was the question. But I
Okay.
understand it's you. What you are saying is, one first time you go inside it, you understand the whole course of the illness, so to say. And the second time you're there, you know how to navigate that space. You've learned. Maybe this is the best way to get through this sort of phenomenon, and so we get fall back into the same patterns. As am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, like I think it gets from my personal experience, it gets easier. But I think like if you're going to a psychotic state, like you're gonna have those delusions because it's like it's a state of consciousness. It's not just like, oh, I'm like I can just like muscle down and sober up like this. It's a process. It takes time. So it's like,
Yeah, because the next time I went there, the next time I wanted to do it while I was doing my masters and wanted to like did drugs voluntarily. I was like, bro, I know what my delusions are, and this time by the sheer will of human volition, I am not going to have the same delusion. Of course, I know I've written it down. This is not true, but that, and mine is a little more pessimistic theory. My theory is that, so in psychosis, time as a phenomenon moves really slowly. Okay, like one day in a psychotic state is equal to like a week in non-psychotic state, and
Mm,
I lived 2 months in that, almost not 2 months, 2 weeks, but it felt like an year the first time around. So I feel, and there were a lot of heroic things that we did in our psychosis. Like there were a lot of, you did almost martyrdom in your first psychotic experience, and I did similar things. Being selfless and doing things for the good of humanity and not for me, and being all of that. And
right.
when you come out of it, the second time around when I went into psychosis, I was like, I mean, this is just theory that you got to assign meaning to that suffering that you went through. And I mean, otherwise, all of that was for nothing, or was like meaningless in that sense, or wasn't appreciated or rewarded. And so when I'm in that state again, I almost want to believe in it because of the sheer heroics that I played the first time around. I was like,
Mm,
all of that can't be for nothing. So I gotta assign it meaning. The only way I can is just by believing in the same things I was believing in before.
mm,
But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm coming across as this, like a medical student almost, and looking at it. I'm a very spiritual person also. Like I understand everything that you're saying, and I sort of have kept them separately. If somebody talks about the medical things, I'll just talk about that. If you talk about spirituality, I'll talk about that. But I
mm,
I believe in both of them very intensely, and
mm,
it's not, the one doesn't bother the other. So
mm.
yeah, I can understand what you're trying to say.
Okay.
Anyway, I only want to keep the theme very similar around these questions only, and
Okay.
yours is a special case because uh, you're from a different culture, right? And
Mhm.
so understanding psychosis will be very interesting. Wait, okay, I'll just forget questionnaire. I'll look it up later because I have it in my head. uh so I was reading this. uh okay, I was reading this research paper, and what they said was, again, the whole theory of the delusions that we have is trying to make sense of the unusual experiences that we're having. And uh, so like I said, I was an atheist, and in my psychosis, my theories were spiritual, and my theories were of the divine. And most psychotic experiences are spiritual in that sense.
Mhm.
So one explanation that came out of it, yours was too, came out of it was, this is something that, uh, in order to explain this, the tools that are available within our, we take it from the cultural repertoire, is just the spiritual, the things that talk about the spiritual and the devotional, because there is no other theory that sort of explains our experiences that well. You're trying to understand what I'm trying
Mhm.
to say?
Mhm.
Is, yeah. So but yours, uh, I mean, I want to understand, did you pick up a theory from your cultural repertoire, or because you also talked about Hinduism and a culture which is different from yours? So I want to know what theories did you use, and why do you think psychotic experiences are always spiritual, even when it's an atheist that goes into psychosis?
Yeah. So I did not use my culture's view of psychosis. Um, I because the view of psychosis from like the Western perspective is that it's an illness. It's a disease, basically, well, not a disease, but it's a disease or an illness. I mean, and it's bad and it needs to be treated and stuff like that, which I agree with to some degree, but it's very like uh this is bad, let's eliminate it. This is creating negative symptoms, let's get rid of it. And it doesn't really go any further than that. It's basically like how can we medicate them and bring them down.
Right.
So there's not much focus on like listening to their story. There's not much focus on talking with them, and it's very just drug oriented, and then just kind of see what happens and hope for the best, because they don't really know what to do. They're just like, give them some meds, make sure they exercise, and hopefully it works. Different cultures, like indigenous cultures, or shamanism and stuff like that, use it differently. Somebody who would go into an altered state, like psychosis, would be celebrated in the community. It would be somebody who had gifts, who had abilities to navigate between two different worlds, not just the physical world, but also the dream or spiritual worlds. And so the community would step up and support that person and make sure that they had what they needed to get through their experience, because they knew that that person was not on the physical realm anymore. They were in a spiritual realm as well. So they had a lot on their plate. So they made sure that they were okay. They had the medicine man or medicine woman in that community help them get through that experience, because they were familiar with that realm of dream and spirit. And so they helped them to get through that. So there was a whole support team around that, which we don't have today. It's a
Right.
very different view of psychosis. And I'm not saying that that's not to say that psychosis is like rosy and like it's a great experience and like I would recommend it, like, oh, go try psychosis, guys. It's a
Uh,
trip.
but
It's
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying it to not be sort of frivolous and flippant about it. Psychosis is what sort of gave meaning to my life, almost. And
Yeah,
it is a very big part of my identity. Like
right,
it gave purpose to my life, honestly. Like
right.
for me, if I'm being candid, real life became very easy after psychosis. Like
Mm,
managing relationships and managing people and sort of seeing how their ego is playing in interactions, and how it's like it becomes very easy to manage people and relationships, because you are in your psychosis living the edge of all experiences, like extremities in all sense, whatever you can experience here: anger, frustration, being chased, paranoia. You can imagine what to whatever extent you can in this realm, so to say. But in psychosis you are actually living it. And
right.
even in terms of privacy, right? I did you experience thought broadcasting in psychosis? So did you also
Yeah,
feel your thoughts are being read by people and they're intercepting it?
yeah,
Right. So for somebody like that, the idea of privacy, what I mean, I don't have privacy when I'm taking a pee, like piss in the washroom. I can't take when I'm taking a bath. I can't look at my, groin, and I can't look at my genitals, because if I see, everybody else is also seeing. So,
mm,
so for me, when I came out of it, uh, my most private moments were being, according to me, what I felt uh, was my reality. My most private moments were being sort of broadcasted to a lot of people, at least 1,000. I never tried to put a number on it, but at least 1,000. And if that, I'm okay with that and I can live with that, when I come back to the real world, I mean, stage fright. I'm a musician, okay? So
yeah,
what will you talk about, like stage fright? Okay, I have to play in front of 20 people. Of course I can play. I've played in front of 1,000 people and I wasn't even good, right? Now prepared. So I don't have stage fright. And there's so many skills that I've picked up from psychosis. I mean, I thought the reason why I'm telling you all of this is uh, because the way this interview is structured, I thought maybe you thought that I'm coming from a particular school of thought and I'm not. Uh, I mean, I got that sense that maybe I should not discuss spiritual things with him, or just like psychosis is a huge part of my life. I can't,
mm,
maybe let's just, he's used talking about it as a phenomenon, but no, it's a huge part of my life as well. Like
mm,
it actually defines who I am. And so yeah, I mean, don't uh don't think that I'm almost flippantly talking about psychosis. No, 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 psychosis means everything to me. And I'm going to dedicate my life to like research in psychosis. Like, I'm not going to
mm.
marry, not going to have kids. I just read about psychosis, like do research. So yeah, I mean, yeah, why did I get into this whole? What were we talking about? I mean,
You asked me the question. Did I use my culture's
So that's not,
definition of
my explanation. I don't feel we pick explanations from our cultural repertoire. It's just that something that I read, but I actually still believe in a lot of the things about the realms and about my spiritual understanding. I still believe in all of that. So yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt you again. You were saying?
it's okay. Yeah, and I never I for me like I don't like I don't care what you think, like it's
Yeah,
you have your opinions and stuff, this is
yeah,
like I'm you have questions for me and I'm here to answer them. So like if even if you disagreed with me or you agreed with me, like for me, like it's just about sharing. So like
yeah.
it's all good. But yeah, so the culture, yeah, so I didn't use my culture's definition of it. I sort of reached out and like I already had some background in spiritual um ideology and stuff like that, and an understanding to some degree of different dimensions and altered states. I have a I mean I'm still gonna learn more as I go on, but um I have some experience with altered states and different dimensions and sort of how they work, and I'm starting to understand them better. People throughout history go into altered states on purpose to gain information, to gain insight, to do that. I mean, in India, the yogis, they go into meditation, they gain things. In South America and shamanistic rituals, they go into trance where they get information for their community. Some spiritual, or not spiritual, some Christians and stuff like that, and people who practice Islam also go into trance to some degree through meditation or prayer. Or the Jewish, when when they're like rocking back and forth, that can put you into an altered state. It's all like tapping into something different.
Mm.
Um, so I think I think our culture has a long way to go as far as like understanding. I think at some point spirituality and science kind of have to meet together, because like we're not just a physical hard, like we're not just a physical being. I think science is very important. The scientific method is super important. And I think like people like Wim Hof, who like are sort of bridging the gap between, I don't know if you know who Wim Hof is, but
I don't.
he's
I
like,
don't.
you do or you don't?
No, I don't. I don't.
You don't. So he's basically he's got like 25 or 28 world records. He's basically trained his body to be able to sustain his core temperature in freezing temperatures, essentially. So he stayed in ice for like 2 hours, just sitting in ice, and he was like his core temperature never changed. He's hiked like Mount Everest in shorts and just like shoes, just shorts and shoes.
Okay.
Uh, but he studied yoga for a long time, like deep into yoga, and he's basically able to control his own like immune system response, and his different parts of his brain. He can actually like control them, which is like what a lot of yogis have like done, and over time that they've like shown that they can do different things, but they don't publicly do it. Normally it's like they're just doing their own thing on the side.
Yeah.
Wim Hof is like gone into labs where they've actually studied him, and he's shown them that like they injected him with a toxin, and he was able to resist the response. He didn't get a flu, he didn't get like any of the symptoms because he was able to engage that. So
Right.
people like him who are bridging the gap between spirituality and science, showing that like there are techniques, there are ways to control our biology, to control our minds in a way that is actually like beneficial and actually has practical value, that is actually real, has real results. And if you look at meditators, they've done brain scans of people who like there's literally physical change in the brain from doing meditation. So like there's starting to merge, and I think they're going to start to merge more and more. And I think psychosis is going to tie into that at some point. So like Western and Eastern, or Western and like more spiritual kind of mindsets are going to merge and understand each other at a meeting point. Um, and So that's kind of how I view psychosis, is like from the Western perspective, the medication helps. The medication does make a difference. It helps people, but also don't like necessarily um, let people tell you that there's something wrong with you, that like you're broken, that you need to be fixed. Like you're
Right.
just a human, just like everybody else. Everybody's broken, you know. Like
Yeah.
everybody's got their issues. It doesn't mean that you need to be ashamed, you know. Like it's okay to have this experience, and it's important for your story to be heard. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that the spiritual communities are better at, than necessarily a Western approach, which is like take these medications. There's something wrong with you.
Right. The reason why I asked you this, Hayden, is uh, uh, because I am from the East, right? I'm from India, and
Right.
the so we are. I had this sense of repulsion almost of the spiritual explanations we had here, and uh, I mean, in my psychosis, I did not. Adapted the same one which was prevalent, but later on, the reason why I could not reconcile my psychosis experience and my real experience was because I thought it's for me. This was very regressive, and this was again we've been colonized by the Britishers, right? So we've
Right.
this idea of inferiority very deep within us in
Mm.
terms of because we sort of exalt the spiritual a lot and not the scientific. Then the spiritual is sort of you know in terms of the pedestal, it's at lower level than the scientific. So I was repulsed by it, and so I was looking for Western explanations, if you
Mm.
understand what uh, the way I so my the way I explained to myself my psychosis was through Carl Jung's theory, right? And he says that uh, I mean, for every person, the projection, the way we talk with everyone is the persona, and the real self is within. And in my psychosis, what I was doing was uh, are you aware of you talk about synchronicity, so of course you're aware of synchronicity and how we assign special significance to coincidences in synchronicity. But
Mm.
I was dealing with shadows in my psychosis, and so the ego was battling inside with the shadows, and this battle was going on, and I had the front as the persona. So the person you see in psychosis is the persona, is like the placeholder while I'm battling with my shadows.
Mm.
And the more if your ego is comes out of the shadows, tackles the shadows. For example, am I better? So ever since my childhood, I have been compared with my elder brother. Both of us wanted to do music, and nobody, when guests would come, my brother would be asked to sing and entertain the guests, but I would not get the chance because I'm not good enough without even listening to me. So I picked up the guitar and I would never sing. Now I've started singing because I want to sing, right?
Mm.
But in my shadows, when I was tackling the fact that am I better, am I jealous of my brother, for example? Am I really jealous of my We had a very nice bond, but am I jealous of my brother? And very difficult questions like that. Do I hate my father? And things like that. And if my ego is strong enough, uh, the ego and the self, they coincide. The self is the real sort of self actualized person, which is like not uh, is it getting too complicated?
Mm.
So the self is the uh, not affected by relationships and not affected by you know uh, but also tackling relationships and passions really well. Like the again self actualized is the topmost. uh, I mean, not it's not a competition, but it's the best you can do for enriching your soul in that sense.
Mm. Mm.
And once your ego coincides with yourself, then I can also talk about myself as an objective, like as a different entity almost. Like I'm talking about Pulak right now, and Pulak did this in his life, and I have no attachment to the person that I'm discussing. Like I've sort of detached myself, and I'm in a very peaceful, grounded space where I it cannot be deterred by any problems, that complications that come. Like I'm not trying to get the best job, get the best, like earn the most money and all of the I'm not involved in all of that. My
Right.
purpose in life, I was very curious. It's very inquisitive. I want to know why I'm here, what is my purpose, and all of that, like those existential questions. And I have got them answered through my psychosis. So
Mm,
now I'm not in the almost fight anymore.
mm,
And so that's who, like, me being grounded, and Carl Jung's theory sort of helped me put all of this into place. I'm sure
mm,
there's an equally good explanation in my cultural repertoire, but because of that inferiority thing, which is like historical, I did
mm.
not use that. So yeah, I just want to share a little bit with
Yeah,
you.
that's cool. Yeah, I can relate with that. Like, because I'm not really worried about my life purpose either. Like that was something that I was worried about before,
Yeah.
but now like I've kind of had messages and understandings for myself that um and I've just kind of realized that like there's nothing really that I need to do or change or like I just need to accept who I am as a person and just like allow life to unfold. Like there's things that I need to take action on. There's things I need to have discipline in, but I don't need to be like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Just allow things to come out and express themselves. Like I think that there is a guiding hand in life for sure. Like if you allow it to happen, like it's not even a guiding hand. It's just like if you get out of the way, you can your life force can move much more powerfully, you know? Like you put all these dams and blockages up all around you, like, oh, I need to do this, maybe I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm ashamed. Like all those blockages prevent things from moving, from growing, from expanding. It's like you're putting a bunch of rocks around a tree and it can't grow because it's like you're suffocating it. You know, just take the rocks off and just leave the tree. You don't have to teach a tree how to grow. It'll grow. Just give it some water. You know, do your daily practice. Give it some water every day, and just let it go. It'll do its thing. Like you don't need to. That's kind of what I realized. Like,
Yeah.
and for me, that's what enlightenment. It like enlightenment. Like I don't think we have control of when we like have self actualization. It's like you can do things that create a good environment for it, but if you're starting your life with a plant that's like this big, you're probably not going to get to a big tree in one life. You know, it's like you got this plant, just enjoy being that plant. You know, if you're a piece of grass, enjoy being grass. Like you can't change yourself. There's beauty in grass. It's very important to the ecosystem. I think some people are ashamed of who they are and ashamed of being a piece of grass. They don't see the beauty in that, you know, or beauty in being like a ladybug. It's not flashy. It's not amazing. You know, you're not like on TV and stuff like that. It's like that's not your role in this life. You know, that's not like maybe it is. You know, maybe down the line it will be, but you won't know until you actually accept where you are right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's also I feel like, especially I'll talk about myself in my drug induced psychosis. What I feel is this: point A is where I was, and point B is the whole self actualized person, right? But I did not. We took a shortcut. We took a sort of what's that called? It was the black hole is used in the movie where
Um, a
hyperloop or whatever, like.
what's it called? A wormhole.
Yeah, so I we took a shortcut, and now I'm tracing back how did I get to the self act. I mean, I'm not saying I'm self actualized, I'm not at all,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm tracing backwards to find out how did we reach to this conclusion and all of that. The shortcut was taking the drugs and getting there, which of course there are better, more organic ways, through meditation, through mindfulness, through uh, and which is there, and which is what I'm trying to get into, to sort of get there organically. You get there by accident, and then you don't know how to get there again, so you
Right.
sort of learn to get there and guide yourself. And
Right.
it's I mean it's they're very intense, and they're very intense experiences, drugs. And if you don't have you need somebody before you who went into the tunnel, got hit, got injured, came back, learned the way through, and he guides you. Listen, this is what you're supposed to do, okay? uh,
Right.
and I did not have that. I had very shitty people I was doing, like college seniors, who would not. I mean, for most of the students here in my sort of college, where I was, drugs
Mm.
was socialization, and drugs is something very like even weed, pot, hash, all of that was fun and for socialization purposes and not deep introspection and just wondering about things and just working things out. That they did not take it with a lot of sincerity. They were like, it's just fun, I'm gonna poke fun at this guy, he went out first, or he is an idiot, and even on drugs he's an idiot, and things like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I did not have a. I think it's very important for you to, especially when you're doing harder substances like DMT or ketamine or things which are beyond your control. You should have somebody to guide you, to tell you how to
Oh yeah.
navigate that experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
very important. Okay. I also want to wait. Let me just. So, should we talk about medication?
Sure. We can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. Is there anything? Okay, but I am I bothering you or anything? Like other things that you're not pleased by, or you just can let me know. Okay.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty open. I'm pretty much.
Are you relaxed and calm? Right. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't agree with me, it's again. I don't want you to agree with me either. It's I completely understand what you're saying, but I should not come across as somebody who's trying to impose. That's my biggest fear, and I don't want to do
Mm,
that. Like with my questions also.
mm.
Uh, okay. Let's talk about medication. Uh, what were the perceived psychological and physical effects of the antipsychotic medication that you had to take?
Well, I think when I was in my psychosis, I was much more sensitive to the medication because I like everything was like wide open. Like just I could feel so much more. I was much like I didn't even feel comfortable going to public places when I was like, especially after the psychosis, because I just felt very like vulnerable in that state. So I think when I took the medication, it like hit me pretty hard. It kind of like made me just kind of like just kind of a rote like I don't it's hard to it's like strips the emotions away. It just kind of makes
Yes.
you like nothing. Like
Emotional castration almost.
yeah, just strips it all. Like
Yeah.
you go from like a very stimulated, sort of euphoric and sort of dopamine heavy state to a very like kind of it was like stillness, but in a almost a numb kind of way. Like there wasn't as much feeling.
Right.
And I wasn't on a very high dose of medication. I think the highest dose I ever took of medication, like over time, consistently, was like maybe 1 milligram or 0.75 milligrams of risperidone, which wasn't a lot. But there were some times in the hospital where they gave me medication, and I don't even remember what happened. So like they figured out pretty quick that I was pretty sensitive to medication, because just I guess with the way I acted or like I don't remember what happened. So I
Right.
don't know what happened, but they ended up saying that I was sensitive. So I was like, okay, well, I mean that makes sense.
Right.
But so I think it's like an important piece of recovery. Like I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's it helps to sort of ground and come back to reality.
Right.
But it's not the whole piece. It's not the whole puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one part of self-care.
Did you also go through the same like euphoria and psychosis, medication, and then depression? Did you go through that same route?
Oh yeah,
That's.
like
I mean, I was.
because
Yeah.
yeah, that depression after psychosis is
Man,
ridiculous. Like
seriously.
talk about a ton of bricks. Like there's nothing you can do about it. Like you can exercise, you can get up, you can do something. You're still gonna feel like absolute trash. Like just nothing. Like just a ton of bricks on you for at least 2 months, and then it starts to dissipate.
Yeah.
But my mom literally had to come and get me out of bed, like physically. Like she's like, Hayden, put out your arm, like you're coming out of bed. Like that's how depressed I was, especially the first time. The
Yeah.
second time wasn't as bad, but the first time it was like just I made a video. Well, you probably watched the video, but
Wait.
it was
Can you also hear the beeping sound?
no, but it's probably on my end because
Oh.
I think I've got some kind of frequencies going on in my room or something. Like because I think I live close to like an electric line or something like that, and so it messes with my microphones. Because I
Oh,
have like a high quality mic that I normally use,
right, right,
but
right.
when I turn it on, it picks up those frequencies, so I can't use it in here because it picks up the frequencies too much, which is it's a
Oh,
bummer. But
it's like a shrill, persisting beep. It's dying now. Wow. Okay. Anyway, we'll make. I have to anyway transcribe this, so it doesn't matter. Nah, it's gone. Oh, it's gone. Oh, thank God. Yeah, but man, oh, I will have to come out of my researcher role and be informal. Man, that depression, dude. Uh, also, uh, I mean, it's never easy. The reason why I don't want to go into psychosis again is the psychotic experience wasn't all bad, and
right.
the medication sort of helped, but then the depression, the medicine induced depression that comes after that is sometimes you feel like, am I ever going to get out of this? It's really bad. And the okay, the problem that I was facing, because I'm somebody who's a movie buff. I write short stories, I write stories, and I like making movies, and I write my own songs and I perform. I have this musical outfit, right, trying to make it in the music business in India. So
Mm.
I have all of these, you can call it, what I call it is a resource cloud. I don't have a single passion, I have a resource cloud. And then vents to sort of, flow that passion through a vent. So one's music, one's writing, one's it. I don't see it as different things. And
Mm.
in that state, I had to force myself. The idea that I was not okay with was this, that I watched movies because I liked watching movies. Now I have to force myself to watch a movie so that there is no disturbance in my head or I'm not lost in thought. Uh, and that I was not okay with. I was like, I'm only going to do it when I feel like it, because I enjoyed doing it. I was passionate about it. And but you have to force yourself in the beginning, then it becomes second nature. But initially, it's a very great, a very good example that RD Lang gave was. And let's do this exercise with you, okay? It's not part of the interview. uh, Imagine uh, you wake up from a dreamy state, all right, and you find yourself in a prison which is open. The gate is open. There is no guard. There's no nobody, and the gate of the prison is also open. Which one of the two options are you going to do? My first option is, oh, where, how the hell did I get here? And the second option is just get the fuck out of that place. Which one of the two are you going to pick?
I probably do both.
But you can do only one. You can do only one. If you could do only one,
um, I'd probably try to figure out what's going on
right?
first. Because like if I get out of the cage and immediately I fall into a pit of lava, then I'm fucked,
No, no, it's not. I mean, it's not a psychotic world, bro. It's a normal. Like you will find cemented metal roads outside. You won't find lava. Like it's normal. Uh, yeah. So you would wonder, how did I get here, right?
Yeah.
So Adi Lang, and he will like, I'll tell you what the jail is a metaphor for. Adi Lang
Mm.
was like, you should get the fuck out of there first, go back home, brew yourself some coffee, sit on a sofa, and then think about how you got there. And what he's saying is that prison is depression. And you sort of maintain thoughts that sustain that state of depression when you
Mm.
are in depression, and you're like, okay, just give me 20 minutes and I'll sort this out, the thing that is bothering me. But it's always an inconclusive, almost, and never ending, just ideation which never ends, and
Right.
you always remain in that state. So what
Right.
he's saying is, reflection is important, because you will learn lessons from it, so that this shit doesn't happen to me again. So that is
Mm.
important. But your idea should be, get the fuck out of that place first, and then
Mm.
make yourself some coffee and think about, how did I get there, so that I don't get there again. So
Yeah.
similarly, in depression, you've got to force yourself to, okay, fine, there are some ideas that you really want to just sit and leave me alone, I want to think about this for a while. And that a while never ends, you just want to keep yourself in that state. What he's saying is, just get out of that state first, and then you can wonder, why was I depressed, why was I, you know
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I mean
mean,
it's kind of similar with psychosis too. You first want to get out of it and then reflect on what happened later. Because like my videos, I always talk about grounding is first, reflection comes later. Like at first, you need to be like, okay, this state is not healthy. I need to get out of it. Once you're out of it, once you're grounded, then you can look back and be like, oh, this was helpful. This was insightful.
yeah,
This was not
yeah.
helpful. Because if you're still in it, you can't really do a
Yeah,
proper.
when you're experiencing it, you can't tell someone what you're going through. You It's only when you come back and yeah, yeah, that's true, that's true. Yeah, so again, talking about medication, do you think that the side effects of psychiatric medication are underplayed? Are there any benefits of taking psychiatric medication? And are the benefits sort of overplayed?
I think it depends on the individual, because different people react different ways to medication. But I think the medication is definitely a powerful tool that should be considered when considering wellness after psychosis. So it's kind of like if you're gonna have your toolbox of tools, medication should definitely be an option on the table, something that you should definitely use. That including like some kind of regular routine practice that you have every day and exercise and different things, hobbies, and like we were talking about, getting out and doing stuff again.
Yeah,
But is it overplayed, or is it it's I don't think it's overplayed. I think the Western world focuses too much on medication, that it's like the only answer, and it's not. um, and I mean, the side effects can be pretty severe. Like some of the side effects do affect people pretty significantly and can create a lot of other issues like obesity, which can result in more depression, um, and cloudy thoughts, and cloudy, just it can mess you up in other ways. So it's kind of like people who have really bad psychosis that really need to be on a lot of medication. um, it's like they kind of have to pick between the best of two evils. It's like, do they want to be psychotic, or do they want to be kind of drugged up and not able to function as well as normal? And those people, I hope, would be able to get disability checks so they don't have to feel like they have to work because their state is, they're
yeah,
you can't work when you're on that much medication that messes you
yeah,
up so bad. Like they shouldn't be required to work, in my opinion.
yeah. This is very influential. I mean, I guess I mentioned him before. R.D. Lang, very influential psychiatrist of 1960s, and what he believed was psychosis is a very essential part of the spiritual awakening of somebody who was going through psychosis. So what he did, being a psychiatrist, he started a movement called anti-psychiatry, and he was based in London, and he had this place called King's something, basically a rented building, and people who had psychosis, he would not give them medication. He would say that the whole journey is, it's important for him to complete the journey, the awakening. It has to be completed. You can't stop it midway, right? For you, like you said, you almost had a full arc where you met somebody, they were benevolent, and then it got closure. In a lot of the play, like a lot of people do not get closure. Some of my participants and me as well. And he said that you have to give them. So he would take in people who were psychotic, and they would stay there in that sort of accommodation with him and do whatever they want to do in their delusional state. Food would be taken care of, everything else, like uh, checking constantly, are they fine? But otherwise they were allowed to do whatever in that state, because the awakening was still happening, and he gave importance to that experience. It's very like, there's a movie called Mad to Be Normal, based on this house and all the psychotic people. And i'd I'd recommend you to, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out.
What's it
uh,
called?
it's called Mad to Be Normal.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there were people from the medical background too who sort of saw the value in uh, uh, our experience in psychosis, right? So again, the next question is related to that. On removal of the intake, were there any withdrawal symptoms like medication? And were you encouraged by the psychiatrist or the psychologist to discontinue antipsychotics?
So when I first tapered off, um, so I'm still on medication now for my second psychosis.
Right.
But when I tapered off the first time, I I was not recommended by my doctor to do it, but I told them that's what I wanted to do. Um, there weren't there weren't like very strong side effects. It wasn't like side effects of going off of it. It was more like the medication kind of takes an edge off of my experience of daily life. And so by going back on back off the medication, I got the full dose of what life was giving me. And so I think over time that accumulated and that led me to kind of get depressed and anxious and um, kind of struggling again. And so I resorted back to drugs to help me with that. So I resorted back to cannabis and I experimented with mushrooms a little bit and stuff. Not a big dose, but small doses because I didn't want to go back into psychosis. I realized that psychedelics would have that effect. So I just did small stuff. Just too scared to do big stuff. But it ended up putting me back into psychosis again. But that's I think if I had I don't think I could have done anything different because I just didn't have the knowledge at the time. So I didn't know that cannabis would put me back into a psychosis. I didn't know that I was dealing with more stress and anxiety than before. And, I was just kind of naive in that way. So I was still learning. This time, I'm still on the medication. It's helpful for me. Like it still brings, um, I stay on it partially for preventative reasons, but um, also mostly just because I'm not doing any cannabis or anything like that. I smoke hemp now, which is CBD, which isn't psychoactive. It doesn't make you high. It just relaxes you. It gives you a little bit of a stone feeling, but not like cannabis. They actually are researching it to use it as an antipsychotic. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not like it doesn't pose like an imminent threat to me, but it gets me in a similar headspace to cannabis where I can sort of process things and understand things. And it does raise your mood quite a bit. It makes you kind of in a happy state. So it's nice to use. But yeah, medication, still on it, still helpful. I think later in life I'll probably go off of it, but I think for now I'm happy where I'm at, and until I feel like I have a big enough foundation, I don't see myself going off of it
Right.
again. It's not worth it.
Right. Yeah. Uh, okay. This is. Uh, I'm moving on to the next question. Do you think a person with a lived experience of mental illness is better equipped to work in the mental health field? Like medical professionals often say about psychotic people that we do not have insight about our condition. Like this person does not have insight about his condition. Do you think that's true? Could you elaborate
No,
on that?
I think I think to be a mental health professional, a prerequisite is to go through something very difficult, like an initiation, to be able to help others. Like I don't know why somebody would want to go into the mental health field if they themselves have not experienced something traumatic or something difficult. Because then, like, what would they help people with? Like if they've never been through something really hard, even if it's not like, so say like their mother died or something like that, and that they went into a depression and it was really hard, and then they came out, like that could be the reason why somebody would go to mental health. But like if somebody's had like no problems, they've never faced any issues within themselves ever in their whole life, they just kind of go through, they externalize everything, they make fun of people, they're angry, and they see nothing wrong with themselves. Why would someone like that want to be a therapist or a counselor?
Yeah.
That's just, it doesn't attract those kind of people because like it attracts people who have been through hell and have gone through it and they want to help other people do the same thing. you know.
Mm.
I think there's probably some exceptions. There's always exceptions, but I feel like generally that's the case. And as far as psychosis goes, I think they're probably the best equipped to help people who have gone through psychosis, provided they're able to integrate and process their experience. If they haven't been able to, it might be one of the worst people to help with psychosis because they might make it worse.
Yeah, am I one of those people who haven't processed things? No, I just want your opinion, Adrian. Be honest, come on.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know you well enough,
No,
but
okay, but like first impressions, like, do you think I'm a little cocky or arrogant or something?
cocky or arrogant,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're still young and you have probably a lot to learn, just like me. So
Yes.
like
Yeah.
you're not going to be like amazing right off the bat, you know, like,
Yes.
but I think your intentions are the right place and you have some tools that you'll be able to help people with. And I
Right.
think as you continue to practice, you'll gain more tools and more understanding, and you'll be able to help people even better as it goes along, you know. It's a lot of it is it's one thing being able to help yourself, it's another to be able to help other people, that's another skill. And then there's also like you're 26, I'm 27, we still have a lot of life to live. And so there's still a lot of lessons and a lot of self development that we still need to do. And until we've done that in ourselves, we can't really help other people do the same thing. So
Right.
most of the people that you work with and most of the people that I'll work with at this point are going to be people that have been where we've been before, and we can help them where they are now based on, you know, because we've been there before. But we're not going to get somebody who's like way ahead of us and is looking to develop like something that we haven't developed yet because we don't have anything to offer them.
Right.
So you can definitely help people, but it's going to be a limited demographic of people because of what you've experienced to
Right.
this point.
Yeah. I agree with you. Completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, you're you were saying that only people who've gone through hell would want to choose this profession. I mean, why else would you choose this? I mean, that's in an ideal world that would be the case. But honestly, my experiences with psychologists and psychiatrists here has been pathetic.
Yeah.
The only reason I had to get into this field was there was no bloody person to understand what I'm going through, and like intellectual poverty almost. Even in psychologists and psychiatrists, like, okay, they were looking at he's gesticulating, not making eye contact, look shy, and all of that, but they were not paying attention to the content of my hallucinations, let's say that. And my and they were like, pay attention to your emotions and don't think about all this bullshit later, and ignore the voices. And my idea was, uh, my emotions are intricately attached to my thoughts, and until those get resolved, my emotions are not going to get resolved. Also, you have to pay attention. My symptoms are a window to me, and there is a reason why every symptom has meaning, and in order to uncover that meaning, you've got to take the symptom seriously. You can't just give me medication and, you know uh, like, push the
Turn it
symptoms
off.
down. Yeah, they're gonna come up again because there's an underlying psychological problem.
Right.
If that doesn't get resolved, it's gonna come up again. So
Right.
yeah, I have a very bad experience here, and a very incompetent psychologist in, like, my country, and I can say that. I can write it in my research also. Like, that's
Yeah.
the truth.
I
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have pretty good psychologists, but that's also because I didn't go with like the mainstream psychologists. Like my dad was sort of aware of altered states and stuff, so I was able to get a psychologist that like was familiar with working with people who have been in those kind of states. So I was pretty blessed in that sense where I was able to work with people who not only understood me but also like listened to me, you know. Like I never felt like they were judging me or saying things that, you know, saying like you need to stop thinking that. It was more like they kind of swam alongside me while I was like in my experience, you know. Instead of saying like this is wrong, it was more like it was more society that was saying their sort of non-spoken words were like this is not good, this is not okay. And my parents were scared too. My mom was really scared, so she was saying like you need to like, you know, you need to stop thinking that way, you need to like move on and stuff like that. Just because I don't think she knew what else to do and it was scary for her, so she wanted to push it away. But my counselors and stuff were pretty pretty awesome actually. So I was lucky to
But
have that experience.
but did they give adequate attention to what your the content of your hallucination or your thoughts, or did they just say take this medicine and it'll suppress the symptoms? They did give you adequate attention?
So my counselors didn't give me medication, only my psychiatrist.
Right.
I my psychiatrist that I have right now, she's okay. Like she listens and stuff, but she's there to give you medication. So
Yeah.
she's not really there to listen to your life and listen to your story. You
Yes.
know, psychiatrists are not counselors. They're trained in chemistry. They're trained in pharmacology, stuff like that. So like they're not great at that stuff.
Yeah.
Counselors are better at listening because that's their job. Um, so the ones that I had, they did listen to everything. They sort of moved into that space with me instead of trying to pull me out of it.
Mm.
So I
My
had a combination. I had a really good support network. I was very lucky.
yeah. Yeah, my parents didn't understand me. They did support me, and my psychologist did Rorschach test, Beck's depression test with me, and then
Mm.
gave me medication. She's like, "Okay, congratulations, you're not depressed. You have psychosis, and take these medications." And I was in the rehab, right? So we had this routine while I would recover on the medication and get back to normal. And once I did not I wasn't given counseling, regular counseling sessions, and I had my ideas were not listened to and all. Yeah, it was bad. It was pathetic. The reason why I had to change my stream and get into mental health, and I was trying to be a civil engineer, which was a bad choice for me because, yeah,
It's hard to know what's right, you know. Like you do the best you can with the knowledge you have at the moment, you know.
yeah. All right, Hayden, you can tell me when you feel exhausted, and we can like end this also, or we can
Okay.
continue this later. Like you can tell me whenever you feel exhausted. Are you
Okay.
sure?
We can do one more question and then we can finish the
Okay.
rest of
Thanks. Uh, all right. Let me. Okay, I'll choose this one. Can you draw parallels between uh, being on a bad trip on pot or hash and be a psychosis? Are there similar experiences?
Say repeat the question again, sorry.
Is getting high on pot or hash a similar experience to psychosis? Are they two? Are both of them similar experiences, or are they different?
Um for me, like they're they're similar but very different. Similar in the sense that your state is altered, you're in a different state of consciousness. Different in the fact that it's a completely different experience. It's kind of like how apples and bananas are both fruit, but they're completely different fruits. They have different flavors, they have different textures. It's just different, you know. Psychosis is really like a deep dive. It's like you're there's no getting out. It's not going to run out. It's not going to run out in 2 hours. Like you're in it for like at least 6 months, you know, like the full process will at least take 6 months between starting your psychosis and actually like fading out of it. I it To me it would be very rare that someone would fully recover after 6 months. It usually takes much longer than that. For me, it took the first time it took about 4 years. The second time it took about a year and a half to 2 years to really feel like I was back on my feet again. And I'm not just talking about asymptomatic. I'm talking about like having confidence again, having feeling like you're not depressed anymore, getting rid of some of the insecurities that come back up after psychosis. That sort of takes a while to process and sort of move forward again. From my experience, that's been my journey. So in that sense, the duration is different. Pot is very in some ways it's much more superficial than than a psychosis. Like it's dipping your toe into something that is like so much bigger. I think psychosis, you kind of plunge right in. So like it's kind of like if you went swimming at the beach and you went in the water, and you can kind of choose how deep you go into the water depending on how much you take with pot. So you can go kind of deep in.
Yeah.
Um, but psychosis is like basically getting caught in a riptide. You get pulled out in the ocean and you have to figure out how to swim. You know, every once in a while you might find like a piece of driftwood that you can hold on to. That's eventually somebody comes along and saves you, and then you have to deal with that traumatic experience and figure out how to process what happened to you. And you learn some things, like you see some things. You might see some big fish, you might see some big a giant squid, some sharks, you know, some scary things. You'll see all kinds of stuff, and it'll be cool on some extent, but it's also scary as fuck, like really fucking scary, and you have no idea what's gonna happen. uh, with pot, you know, like you can still see the shore, you know, like it might kind of get distant, but like, you know, eventually you're gonna come back. You know, you have your little buoy, eventually you'll get pulled back in.
Yes.
So that's kind of the difference for me between psychosis and
Wow,
cannabis.
that's a very beautiful and poetic analogy, man. Like, I mean,
Thanks.
that's wonderfully put, man, Hayden.
Thanks.
Thank God we're ending on this note, you know, like, I just stop the recording.